And we're back once again, only on its last call. Last call of the alcohol, only on the lastcallpodcast.com. And this time I was on the YouTube channel, so that way we can show this beautiful man here all the love. He's been on a war path recently, but big things are happening with him. And well, unfortunately, he wanted to join WWE, but they are afraid he will confront a certain ex-employee who has had some things to say about Booker T, and on behalf of Booker T, maybe slap a bitch, as they say. I give you the powerful, the always the confrontational, but the intellectual. With the 26-inch pythons, naturally. I give you Kevin Apollo. So Kevin, so let's start off here with the good part here. Jey Uso, Gunther. We were worried about this. Like, okay, Yeetamania is great. I love it. Other people don't. They think this, Jay's not serious enough. Take me to this promo because a lot of people love it. There are people who wish he actually attacked Gunther, but you have the impression that this is the perfect promo for Jay. It helps elevate him as a serious guy. Why is that?
Well, listen, Jay cut the promo of his life. Jay has been on the more serious track since Roman came back. It's that, that part of the pandemic era was so long ago and so weird. I think people kind of forget about it, but I always point out that I truly don't think the Bloodline storyline finishes until you circle back to Roman and Jay, because Jay was the original dissenter. And Jay gave us some really good, strong, serious promos then. And everybody kind of forgets the only reason Jay joined was because Roman threw Jimmy, in the triangle choke, and he had no choice but to save his brother. Since then, Jay's energy has kind of carried him through and elevated him, and he has had, really good matches. I do think that the number of good matches he has had more than outweighs the one bad Mania match. It's just something that happens. The but you're rolling into this feud. Sometimes I forget how young some IWC fans are because this is playing out like every old school 80s 90s movie where the hero is having a good run, and then the heel comes in and beats him up, and then he loses his confidence, and then something happens where he has to be forced to confront his fears and go after his rival, right? That's exactly how the storyline is played out. The Complete with they took the one botch and they turned it into a major sticking point in the story, right? Because he had the botch, he lost his confidence, he kept slipping, he kept getting in his own way, and he was in his head. And then they reunite the twins, and then Jimmy takes the beating of his life, and they use it as the opportunity to to flip the switch and elevate Jay in terms of the story and how he was going to approach Gunther. The great thing about this is Gunther told a hell of a story too without using his mouth. Gunther's disposition and his face, he was very uncomfortable. There was almost even a twinge of regret, and as he was listening to what Jay was saying, and when you walked away for the first time in this feud, you could tell Gunther had a touch of doubt about what he had done because he probably pushed Jay too far. And Jay on the other side does a great job of explaining where he is emotionally, how he's grown over it, and now he understands that he doesn't have the luxury of being afraid because he has to do what he has to do, right? He has to avenge his brother. He has to defeat Gunther. He has to reclaim his honor and the honor for his family. So now this is just bigger than the title. Jay has to win because if he doesn't win, where does he go from here? So this is an interesting turn in the story. It raised the temperature at the appropriate, to the appropriate heat that it needed. And again, I think it was very smart. We still have a week to go. There's no reason for them to get physical. Jay's message was enough. Gunther's reaction was enough. If they had come to blows, it would have cheapened what Jay what Jay was trying to get across. What happens next week is what happens next week, right? Well, we'll have to throw everybody in these in some hot go home situations, but again, with an entire week to go before it's time to go home, this was a brilliant closeout to a very strong promo.
Should he have just attacked Gunther? Like, I mean, beating the dog piss out of him? Because in real life, that's what happens. Like, you attack a family member, and it's all right. The father, the son, the brother, even the mother, they will just beat that person within an inch of their life. Should that have been the thing where Gunther gets jumped, he gets busted open, Jay is just lost it like a crazed animal? Should they have done that, or is this better because
I think
it makes Jay more
it
composed?
well, what's it? The who's the more dangerous person in the bar when something's going to go down? Is it the guy who's running his mouth the entire time? Or is it the guy who sits there quietly trying to enjoy his drink? It's always the quiet ones. The Jay was calm, which is not normal, right? He should be, like in terms of what Gunther was trying to accomplish. If we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it like it's real. Gunther beats up his twin not only to crush his morale, but to make him emotionally unstable. When you are emotionally unstable, you are mentally weak. It means you're unfocused, you're undisciplined. And it had the opposite effect. It focused Jimmy's mind. It gave him intent and purpose. So the and that's where Gunther realized that he made an error, because you go back to Saturday night's main event. It was really only, yeah, did Gunther beat him, but they were pretty evenly matched until it came time for the champion to wrap it up. So now you have a determined you have a determined Jay, who has already kind of gone through the storm and weathered it, and now he's in a space where now he knows it's a do or die situation for him. You backed him into a corner, but now he isn't afraid. So it's, again, I get it. People want to see the big explosive action, but if you had them go at it, the I don't think it does anything for it doesn't do anything for Jay's character, and Jay needed a character building moment, because we had to tear him down a little bit, right? You had to tear him down to make him the underdog, and sell him as the underdog. The Because when you think about it, Jay has been at Roman's side these last, what, 4 years, and has been responsible for a lot of the destruction and the misery, right? The So he's not really an underdog. He's been running at a main event level for a few years. Hell, his nickname is Main Event Jey Uso. So, in order for them to go in there with equal footing, you don't want them going in there with equal footing, is really what I should be saying. You never want your babyface going in there equal footing, because the drama is in the chase. Um, so you had to tear Jay down in a way that you could build him up really quick and keep everybody behind him. Because, right, the catchphrase is over, but the catchphrase is over because Jay is over. This is a little different. This is a little different than what the what chant started out as, or no, I'm sorry, not the what, the yes chant. I'm sorry. At first the yes chant just started being over because there was just something to do, which is why they kept giving it to everybody, right? So Stephanie did it, they chant yes. Big Show did it, we pulled Brian off of TV and Big Show's doing it, right? But eventually, Daniel Bryan grew as a character to the point that the yes became synonymous with him. So if someone else did it, yeah, they chanted, but they didn't chant it nearly as loud. Yeet, yeah, it's just a character thing, that people picked up, and it took a life of his own. But it was more important to make sure that Jay is just as over as the chant, and they accomplished that. We had to go the long way around, but they accomplished it.
How much does this suffer because, as I said, it's a younger generation thing, and even fans, romanticize things. So if this is Stone Cold, if this is The Rock, they would take Gunther and beat the piss out of him. It would have been like an epic, just Gunther is busted open. Austin is just, sneering at him, beating the crap out of him. That's what we grew up with was the baby face is sort of a heel, but he if JR got assaulted, if the Rocks, one of Rocks, people got assaulted, there was an ass whooping to pay the next day. Does that hurt, especially considering we can't go back to what older sort of heelish baby faces do? But Jay is confined by different rules.
I don't think it's so much that it's different rules. It's a different character. The Austin character, was the Austin character was a badass, right? He was the BMF. So if something happened, he was looking for reciprocity immediately. Plus 10. So if you touched his friend, yeah, he was going to show up. He was going to whoop your ass. That was the Austin character. Even the same thing for The Rock. For the most part, although maybe the slight difference is that they would The Rock with The Rock, you could beat him up a few more times than you could beat up Austin. The but but that the era, just like the era of the cool heel has gone away, the era of the badass face has also gone away. You had to reset the temperature. You had to appreciate them for what they were and at the time where they existed. Creatively, we're in a different space. The fan base is in a different space. It's you're seeing certain tweaks and changes in how the babies are presented now, but that's only because the fan base is skewing a little older again. But the so I'll put it to you like this: the brilliant thing about Vince and even Triple H is that when you're looking at entertainment as a whole, um, wrestling has always kind of been a little ahead of the Hollywood curve, right? So Austin was your anti-hero, The Rock was your not so squeaky clean babyface, but he was a babyface when he wanted to be. The They were probably 6 or 7 years ahead of movies changing how we present good guys on film, right? The closer you get to it was maybe John McClane, but in reality, the wrestling equivalent of John McClane is a Tommy Dreamer. Now, when you watch TV, if you watch a cop show, good luck finding a cop show that has a cop who's just a good cop for the sake of being a good cop. They're a junkie, they're a gambling problem, they're a philanderer, they've been in the job too long and they're a little dirty, or they're some kind of rogue or a maverick, right? It's never a good cop for the sake of being a good cop. You watch Game of Thrones and there isn't a single character other than maybe Jon Snow who's trying to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. The But look at what's happening with entertainment. The movies don't make as much and the shows don't get watched as much because people are kind of tired of that. People need the the average story needs defined rules. You need to know who you're supposed to cheer for. You need to know who you're supposed to root against. Wrestling wise, as much fun as it was to have that moral ambiguity between your good guys and your bad guys, the stories don't work without clarity, without a direction for everything to go in. So they had like I said, they had to cool the temperature. They had to reset how guys were presented. The Really the only person who kind of still exists in that gray zone is Randy Orton. And even then, when Randy's babyface, Randy is very much so a babyface, right? And that's only because he's been around for so long and he's done so many things that you kind of get a kick out of his misbehaving, right? The but it's in but well, so again, this is why AEW is failing to resonate. You watch AEW and your baby faces and your heels all kind of behave the same, right? There are no real consequences for bad behavior. It's all just kind of a wash. And in terms of creating compelling moments and compelling stories, you need to find rules. So the putting Jay in a space where he is behaving honorably against someone who is behaving dishonorably. He's the average blue collar guy versus the elitist. There are clear lines. They're very clear lines. We're not telling you that you can't like Gunther, but at the end of the day, you understand there's very clear right and there's very clear wrong in this story. So that's why I was like, to have Jay turn around and leave Gunther bloody, it doesn't do much. It gives you a big, exciting moment, sure, but it also hot shots the emotional pop of when the bell rings and Jay punches Gunther for the first time in the match, you lose it, right? It's a mentality behind why Sabu and Taz never touched. You know, why Dreamer never pinned Raven until it was time for Dreamer to pin Raven. You know, or you go back to Brett Shawn in the Iron Man match, right? They didn't lock up until the bell rang. We just learned their story, so that when the action hit, emotionally, it's more impactful. So you can't run hot all the time, and I think that's kind of one of the things where why this WrestleMania feels so different, right? The last three have been running very hot. They had to reestablish their footing, coming out of the pandemic era. They had to burn as hot and shine as bright as possible to mitigate the Vince drama. And when you run like that and you're burning through all your stories and you're churning characters out and you're doing all these different things, you fatigue your fan base. And with this being a transition year, Triple H has done a good job of kind of tempering expectations and getting everybody to relax a little bit. But it has also sucked a little of the excitement out of the air. But everything starts building. When the big moments happen, the big moments feel special because everything else has been kind of cooled down a little bit. So it's does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
So that goes to the next segment here. If Jay Gunther went right, this was a crap show. Let's admit this is one of those things where you could tell. I don't know what it is, but I could tell it went off the rails. Tiffany, Charlotte, 0 for 3.
Yeah.
There was in your DMs. Here's my hot take.
Go ahead.
Triple H should take both of them off WrestleMania's punishment. Hey, play stupid games, get stupid prizes. This is an AEW. You can't just be like Hangman when go off script because this was off script. You could tell that Tiffany just threw that little dinger, but 0 and 3, and that was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Nope.
So
My
should he
thoughts
pull
on
them?
this.
Should this be a lesson? Like, all right, Charlotte can't keep doing this because we know you sort of go rogue, and Tiffany, you really can't do this because I'm not going to have other people decide, oh, I can go rogue because these two did it.
No, no, and here's why. As bad as it's getting, as contentious as it's getting, there is a code. There is a code. You can absolutely hate each other, but once you are in the ring and once you are working, your job is to entertain. Your job is to protect each other. So if you're going to be an idiot and start a fight for real, then guess what? Then you're blackballed and no one ever sees you again. And yes, case in point, you don't really see a lot of going off. You don't see going into business for you. There's plenty of going off script, but you're not going into business for yourself. So, case in point, we can talk about the Hangman Page CM Punk thing, right? Hangman, they sit down, they talk about the promo. It's set to go a certain way, and then Page goes into business for himself, says what he says. If that happened in the WWE, he would have been fired. He probably would have been blackballed. Here's the difference with Charlotte and Tiffany, and we have to go back 2 weeks ago when they did the superstar style promo when they were each in a different box. Um, I would say, well, one, this whole thing has been botched from the word go. The Charlotte is kind of in the spot that Batista was in when Batista came back and won the Rumble and had the title shot. The the everybody was excited they were back, but no one was excited to see them in the Rumble because you assumed they were going to win the Rumble. And then when they won the Rumble, you sucked all the energy out of the air because this isn't what people wanted to see. They've had Charlotte on yachts, talk about how she's living her best life when her return should have been handled. Her return to hold on, let me just close the door real quick.
No, okay, her return should have, it should have been more grounded. There should have been like her suffering, and instead we're getting her on yachts. We're
Well, I think
getting
yeah,
her elegance. We're
what's
seeing
it?
the high life.
Yeah, we should have been like the story, Charlotte story. They should have gone more Triple H going into WrestleMania 18 than what they did. Right? She had a very serious injury. She was gone for a long time. We needed her to come back humble. Charlotte's character is such that she embraces her, she's a creature of legacy. She knows she's better than everybody. She lives, she like her father, she lives a very a highfalutin life. But that's not what you want, especially if you wanted to come back babyface. That's not what people want to see, right? Especially now, the world is getting increasingly more populous. People are more aware of let's see, I would say economic disparity, right? Right, blue collar middle class is more aware that they shoulder the majority of the burden but don't get much of the benefit. So it's getting harder and harder to want to cheer for someone who flaunts their wealth slash no one has ever cheered for this person, right? There's a touch of arrogance, and people are viscerally opposed to arrogance. So they blew that right out the box. He wanted Charlotte to be a baby face. The story needed to be on the struggle of her recovery from her injury, and her and the struggles in her personal life. And she should have acknowledged that the women's division has changed tremendously since she's been gone. It's not where it was when she left. And now that she's back, she understands that she has to earn her way to getting back towards the top, and that's what she's going to do. If you do that, everybody's happy, right? It gives you an excuse. You may even want to cheer for her. I think a couple things are happening. I noticed that when Charlotte mentioned her father, Ric Flair got booed. So could we be in a spot where very much so like Hogan, their extracurricular activity has made its way into the mindset of the normie fan, and people are just kind of tired of them. I think so. I think so. People don't want to cheer nepo babies, and Charlotte was calling herself the nepo queen. So now we botched the yacht blah blah. We go back to the first promo. The first promo, um, Tiffany. Tiffany, people forget Tiffany is very new. Charlotte's been on top for 10 years. Charlotte, even in NXT, although although she was head and shoulders better than everybody else, she essentially grew up adjacent to the business, right? Her father's father, coached by Dusty, hands-on attention from Hunter and Regal and everybody else that's down there. And then she comes in and she gets thrown right into the fire by Vince. And from the second she got over on Raw, her run never stopped. She's been sprinting, up until the times where they go, we got to pull you off TV to cool you down a little bit, and then her major injury, right? The Charlotte knows all the tricks of the trade. As they're talking, you can see Tiffany's inexperience kind of start to creep up, and I don't think that promo was a matter of them going off a script. I think that what you're kind of getting is, and this is my opinion, Charlotte does not look very interested in this story. It does not look very interested in this feud, and is kind of doing stuff to, just to kind of get her through it. And as that promo starts, Charlotte starts talking over Tiffany before she can deliver her line, and it's killing Tiffany's ability to land it with any impact. Right? Charlotte kind of clowned her by just simply knowing more about how to conduct yourself in the situation than Tiffany did. And the promo was disastrous, as a result. I personally think because Charlotte went out on TV and spoke about her marriage issues on what was it, Kelly Clarkson, just hours before that SmackDown. I'm sure that she was expecting some kind of a line about her marriage, but she probably wasn't expecting that line. One of the things, like when you go back and watch this, is and all jokes about Charlotte's face being pulled really tight aside. When Charlotte cuts promos with people, she holds a very stoic face that doesn't really change. Sometimes she puts on that smile. But when you're looking at her face, especially around the eyes, this is someone who's reacting to every single thing that's happening, and she's reacting very deeply personal. I think that this was someone in the writings room taking the opportunity to kind of humble her a little bit. Tiffany knew the line that she had to deliver. She probably anticipated it going being a little bit of a train wreck. You can tell by her body language, the constant pulling of the hair, the resorting to the just yelling your lines like for no reason, and then the moving frantically across the ring. That promo was very the promo was very contentious. Things were running really high. I think also Wade Barrett is a big tell. Stu jumped in there a couple of times. I think there were two significant moments where he jumped in because it looked like he probably thought it was going to come to blows. But we're also seeing that he knows the segment's a train wreck, right? Because the man, he checks his watch at one point to see how much time they have left because he's like, this is the shits. And then Tiffany drops her line, but the baby face in the match says her line, powders, and holds the title over her head. It's the exact opposite of what's supposed to happen. And then Charlotte is so shocked that she drops the dumb line about Kaiser being in her DMs. Making Kaiser the only man on earth to ever be accused of cheating and have everybody on the planet believe that he is in fact not cheating. So they people were not interested in this match, but they have managed to get them interested in this match, just not the way that anybody should ever want to be interested in this match. Because now it's just people want to see the train wreck that's going to come. But to go back to your original point, no, you don't pull them off because they're professionals and they're supposed to behave. There is a code. You always do business. You always do business. You handle your shit in the back or outside, but when you're in the ring, you do business. I know the younger kids out here. They all seem to magically catch heat for no reason with somebody, and they do bullshit like, "Well, I can't work with that guy. I'm not going to work with him." To the point that they may walk off or force some weak-willed promoter to kick a guy off. And honestly, that's sissy shit. You're there to do a job. If you got to work somebody you don't like, it's not, wrestling is not wrestling with your friends. Wrestling is wrestling with whoever the promoter tells you to wrestle. Whether that person speaks, whether that person's an order, an Obama level order, or they don't speak a stitch of English, your job is to get it figured out. And I always go, well, did this guy beat your mother? Did this guy beat your mother or your sister? Okay, then great. If none of that happened, then you have a job, then you get it done. So this same situation here, I'm sure they got chastised or whatever. I also feel pretty confident that someone gave her that line. And it is what it is. You move forward, but I think there's a couple things that line here. I think and also too, this story was super simple, right? Look, I mean, look, they are essentially the same character, right? Their backgrounds are remarkably similar. Ashley Flair was a very gifted gymnast. What could have been on the Olympic track, abandoned the track to pursue her brother's dream. Tiffany, Tiffany was an Olympian level gymnast, did not pursue the Olympics because the WWE was more money. She knew where her bread was going to be buttered long term. The the Tiffany character, it was a nepo baby, right? Her daddy's rich. He got her everything she ever wanted. The Charlotte, Charlotte comes is the daughter of one of the greatest performers of all time, right? One of the greatest performers of all time. The man who is synonymous with the word with the word champion, right? So in turn, in terms of her character, she is also, by virtue of legacy, a benefit. Has severely benefited from nepotism. Right? They are the same character. That they have a very similar pedigree. Tiffany has exploded through the ranks almost as fast as Charlotte did. So this story really should have been old lion versus young lion. Opposite sides. Maybe opposite sides of the same coin, and that's just not how the story's gotten told. Um, some of it could be, hey, the world is different, and Charlotte, you've been on top for 10, 11 years. It's time for you to make some space for other people. And this is the kid that we got to get done. And she's going, I don't, why are you saying this? I still got plenty to give. I still got plenty to give. I'm not ready to budge yet. The I, who there's a lot there to chew on, and we're not gonna know until a Dark Side of the Ring in another 20 years. But this story is interesting, but not for any reason that needs to be interesting.
Again, and as I said, maybe I'm sensitive because the, Charlotte has a history of sort of going off script. She did it with Becky Lynch. She did it with Nia Jax. This is now Tiffany-Stratton. This is three times. And you and I both know a lot of people who've been divorced. It sucks. People,
Mm-hmm.
it's a personal thing you don't go after. It's like the old adage is you don't go after another man's wife or kids. It's taboo. So again, after seeing what happened with Michaels and Bret Hart all those years ago when they got into this, if you're Triple H, why don't you say, hey, you're wrestling the SmackDown before WrestleMania. That's your punishment. You're acting like 12-year-olds. You're not 12. Behave.
Why
Instead,
lose the money? This is a money match. Why would you punish the box office?
because the box
It's
office won't get punished. You're still getting all these big sexy matches here. You can elevate Chelsea Green, who's behaved.
Bro, I'm sorry. I love Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green cannot hold Charlotte's fucking jock strap. She just can't. She can't. And that's their fault for not positioning her because she should have been WrestleMania ready, but she's not. She's just not. You don't listen, it's not real. This isn't like this isn't like the NBA where a couple of guys act like idiots and you suspend two different players from two different teams during the playoffs and you hurt the team for not being able to control what the players did. This shit isn't real. If you want to punish them, you give them a fine because if you pull them off of the card, you hurt the entire company, not them as individuals. You hurt the company, you hurt the fans. This is a WrestleMania level match. It's just poor decisions have made this build not the WrestleMania build it should have been. The again, Charlotte is at a spot in her career where, much like a John Cena, anytime she wrestles, anytime she wants to wrestle, if you're remotely close to WrestleMania, Charlotte should be in the WrestleMania match. I know a lot of people don't want to give her due for whatever reason, but that's where Charlotte is. Charlotte is, in fact, one of, well, probably the best female performer out there, and has been for over a decade. No one can really touch her. The only person who comes remotely close, um, in terms of in ring prowess, is Asuka. And the only person who outshines her, in terms of personality, is Becky, and Becky was an anomaly. Becky had to be kind of forged through fire and steel, to get to where she was as a character. But Charlotte was really a force of nature. The so that no, I don't want you over here. You're leaving cat hair everywhere. You're
See,
killing
your cat is being like Tiffany-Stratton going, I'm going out for myself. I'm going to business. That's why you take the cat, you put it outside, go, no, you're done for the rest of the day.
the
So yeah, that's my argument. Like I get it. It's you're cutting off, you're causing the fans to I guess to have a weaker card. It's still gonna be a great card. It's mostly letting people know, yep, these two effed up. I'm gonna shame you two little bitches because god damn it, you're not 12. Behave. It's
yeah, but
simple.
listen, you wouldn't do it to Sean. You wouldn't do it to Brett. I
And look what
mean,
happened. It
you,
basically they
you're,
had
you
to run one of them out of a company.
the it's let's see. I mean, the wrestling has had no shortage of people who have absolutely detested each other and have maybe taken it a step too far, but that match still had to happen. You can't hurt the box office. The box office at the end of the day is the most important thing. The let's look at look at AEW's box office currently, right? The moment they got rid of Punk and handled the entire Jack Perry situation the way they handle it, it turned them into a laughing stock. And whatever the few casuals that they had, they all left at the exact same time. Tony goes there and tells everybody that he fired Punk. We catch word that there's potentially footage of it, and then the footage finally plays, and you see that Punk really didn't do anything too terrible, right? The little curly haired bitch got in his face and he motioned, and anybody who's ever really truly been in a fight knows that that throw the first punch thing is bullshit. If someone invades your space, your job is to neutralize the aggressor as quickly as possible. The so and Punk neutralized it. And then they made him out to be the bad guy, and they lost. When in reality, what should have happened was the second this became major news, you should have figured out how to get Punk, the Bucks, Omega, and Page all in the ring at the same time, because that's where the box office was. The, you ha- you, your job is to take reality and find a way to warp it into fiction to make money off of it. Jericho, Goldberg, right? Those are two guys who came to blows. They come to blows in the locker room. What happens? You wait a few months and you do the match. Booker T and Batista get into the middle of a fight during a during a promo photo shoot. They're going at it. What happened? They turn around, what, not even a month later, and have a banger of a match when they were still very much so majorly heated at each other. This is just shit that happens. And it's but the as long as you adhere to the code and you do the job that you're supposed to do, as soon as that bell rings, you behave like professionals and you get your shit done. And when the bell is done, you go to your separate corners. Sean and Brett fucking detested each other. Detested each other. But by the time when the bell rang, you would never know it because they knew each other so well. They cooperated. They got the story that needed to get told. They performed at an elite level because that's what elite level athletes are supposed to do. This is your job. This is what you signed up for. Not everybody's going to be your friend. I think people have kind of forgotten that. Shit, remember what sports used to be like? The remember what the NBA used to be like? The those fucking guys all hated each other. They all hated each other. The baseball, they used to hate each other. The NFL, the fucking teams hated
Oh,
these
I
teams that
get
hated
that.
each
It's
other.
just don't act like you're 12. It's because you, as I said, if this was Kevin Apollo and you had two people who were just going off script because you told them, follow the script and they went off script, I'm guessing, and it's probably easier if it was a dude because you probably would have grabbed them both by each hand, lifted them up, and go, "You're not friggin' 12. Stop acting like I have to be your dad and spank your ass. Do be a professional." You can't do that with two women, And I get it. It's this is it's good for it's good for
Well,
drama, blah blah blah. Just it's infuriating
well,
that you have two people who can't act their goddamn age.
so listen, this is the other part of it. Sorry, ladies watching. The I have had the pleasure in working in an office environment where I was the only guy. If you ever want to see how ugly women can be towards each other, work in an office environment. They turn on each other more times more times than the minute hand goes around the clock. It was never ending. And women and men handle um disagreements differently than one another. And yeah, this is a situation where Charlotte has her feelings, and because of that, Tiffany has her feelings, and You can sure you can pull everyone in the room and go, hey, and I'm sure this happened, right? I'm sure this happened. That promo was the shits. I don't understand what happened, but it can't happen again. And then we're gonna swing number two. Wow, that promo was really the shits. What's going on? The I can add the conversation. It doesn't mean that when the conversation's on, it's finished, because it's not like me yelling at two of the guys. It's just not. I can get up and crawl on someone's ass, and if it's two men, actual men versus the little sissy boys we have now, but if I'm dealing with two actual men, they understand why I'm losing my mind. They understand why I'm speaking the way I'm speaking to them. And then it's up to them to decide if well, I say if they're professionals, they know they can't do it here ever again. Doesn't I don't give two shits if they squash their beef. The only thing that matters is don't hurt the product. The we're kind of in a weird little spot where everybody knows that they don't like each other. The average fan who's watching this doesn't really give a shit about any of the other stuff. To them it's just an awkward wrestling promo. They're not worried about this the way IWC fans are sitting down and chewing on it. The the only time you really cross the line in situations like this is if it comes to blows. It didn't come to blows. So, business can still be done. It didn't break down on camera. So business can still be done. The, I guess really what we can, the Nia Jax Charlotte match that went just really wrong, during the pandemic era. Yes, that match went really wrong. And yeah, you watch them stiff the shit of each other until they could get it figured out, right? You know, uh, it's again, slightly different story, but it's it's kind of it goes in the category of shit happens. And when you're dealing with people who are running emotionally high, you need to be prepared that shit's gonna happen, but you still have to tell the story. You still have to tell the story. So again, this is as much the WWE writers' room's fault as it is their fault, because there needed to be a different way to get these stories told, and they just couldn't think of it. They just couldn't. They just for whatever reason, they just didn't weren't able to put it together. Um, they packaged Charlotte wrong, and I'm sure it probably killed her mood. Tiff Allison. The match really should have been Tiffany versus Nia Jax. You built it for an entire damn year, and it just they just went about this whole thing wrong, top to bottom. It's the whole thing's just a shit show. It really is just a shit show. But here we are. But here we are, and unfortunately, because you are dealing with actual real people, and it's not an actual TV show, you kind of have to swim through the shit and hope that you can find at least a remotely suitable outcome. And they have made the best of it with the pile of shit that they left on the floor. I is really kind of the only way I can explain it, is they shit the bed, and now they're trying to deal with the consequences of it. And it's we're here. It is what it is at this point. But I'm sure these two are going to have a banger of a match. And if they don't, we'll see. But right now, Charlotte's the vet. She's the heel. So typically, she should be kind of leading it. I'm sure the agent who's in charge of it will be like, okay, make sure that this is your finish, and will kind of be there to kind of advocate for Tiffany so that she doesn't get steamrolled, or she gets steamrolled. And what did you do for her? She gets steamrolled and Charlotte wins the title a 17th time. Fine, she overtakes her father's record. And now we don't have to talk about Rick anymore. But it doesn't really do anything for her. Tiffany gets steamrolled, and what does it do for, all you really do is hurt Tiffany. So now you got to spend 6 months undoing the bullshit that you did. or or you just make sure that they work together and tell a good story in ring, and whatever the finish is the finish. The only thing that matters is that Tiffany needs to walk out of this a made woman. That's the only thing that matters. She doesn't have to win, but she does have to get made. She does have to get made next week.
Well, speaking of professionalism, let's talk about this one here, which it's not getting enough love, I think, that it deserves. The Paul Heyman, Seth Rollins drama, which is now added another level of intrigue to
Mhm.
Punk, Rollins, Reigns, the triple threat. As you said, in real life, they probably don't like each other. There's bad blood, there's personalities, there is drama, there is even, I'd say, Game of Thrones ish between Punk returning, Rollins and Reigns probably going, okay, we'll do it for best for business, but if you don't like this guy and vice versa. This after last, the last promo where Punk got the favor, which is Heyman is going to be in my corner. We were worried about Rollins being the third wheel. How much does this help? Where now Rollins turns the tide, goes, okay, I didn't destroy you physically, Paul, so now you owe me a favor.
It's an interesting wrinkle in the story, right? Because technically, other than Rollins telling Heyman that he was my favor, Heyman doesn't owe Rollins anything. Oh God, you didn't beat me up, thank you. You know, the the crux of the story is the hatred between the three men. Heyman's presence is the X factor, right? Because he's gonna walk his best friend down to the ring, but his loyalty is to his tribal chief. Heyman is the drama. Heyman is the drama that binds it all together and keeps it feeling fresh. So again, this is just good. This is just good, well-paced, long-form storytelling. You give Punk his main event match. You give Roman his record-breaking match. You put Rollins back up in the top area where he needs to be, and when it's all said and done, all three of your main eventers are going to walk away from this story still looking very strong and able to transition into the next phase of whatever it's going to be. I'm sure right? Because listen, Roman is at attraction level status now. Roman should not be on TV all the time. Roman should be popping up for whatever it is the story is. Rollins is more of a workhorse guy. Although I do think that you know, I, they need to start using the mentality of how can I miss you if you don't go away for guys who are on TV every week and have been for a really long time, especially because they do have an absurd amount of main eventers, and you need to give those guys space to kind of grow. Slash the guys who are stuck at the mid card who need to be given the opportunity to punch through and break out because they're getting stuck and stale, trapped in the mid card. That's a different conversation. This is going to be a banger match. It is what it is, and I don't think people really truly appreciate the genius that is Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman can flip from heel to baby and then back to heel in a sentence. In a sentence, it's incredible. And then he doesn't have to speak. He has god tier facial storytelling. The it's everything you needed to feel. You're feeling it through Heyman, and the fact that he has the ability to cry on demand, it just makes it that much more. It just makes it that much more special. He is the emotional linchpin that makes this match more than just your standard three guys have a beef and now there's going to be a triple threat. This is kind of like old school ECW triple threat storytelling, where you have these guys who are on a collision course by virtue of they all have a goal where they need to get to, but neither one of them can get towards it until they get through the other two. Slash, there is a personal beef here. And you're paying off some long-term stories, right? Punk was the one who brought in the Shield to protect him. The Shield wound up turning on him. The Punk and Roman have, Punk has never been bested by Roman without help from the other. The Rollins has a beef with Punk because he believed in Punk and Punk walked away and doesn't think that he wants to be back. Rollins is now turned Punk who decided he was done with Rollins. It's now personal because of things that Rollins has done. Then Punk has beef with Roman because Roman was there to protect his best friend. Slash Punk Punk's ability to put Rollins away forever was ruined by Roman helping Rollins in the Garden. The which goes back to neither one of them have ever really truly beaten Punk without one or the other helping them. So now there's just it's a lot of layered storytelling there that's really cool. It's really cool, and the best part is it's all very simple storytelling. It's personal beefs, intertwined with professional beefs, and it's all very clear cut and easy to follow. And like I said, it's rewarding people who have been watching for a long time, but simple enough that if I put it on last week, all I have to do is watch the video package, and I know exactly what's going on.
Here's a side note: is Heyman wasted in this? I mean, in a perfect world, you give Heyman a new generation. Let's say the next night after WrestleMania, whoever he wins, he goes, "I'm done. These are my new kids," and it's the Creed, it's Braun Breaker. They come down, they beat the crap out of either Roman, Punk, whoever, and you give them the secret sauce that is Paul Heyman. All three of these guys can talk. All of them can just work a promo. They don't need Heyman. When we look at Paul Heyman, he's always been the guy where it's like, well, Brock Lesnar couldn't cut a promo when he first started. In comes Heyman. Roman Reigns wasn't eloquent enough to do what we want him as a babyface. So here's Heyman as a talker. They don't need him anymore. So is it time to give Paul, hey, look, you're already working with Braun Breaker off camera with stuff. We're giving you Braun now. This is your new kids. These are the guys that, need you more than either Rollins, Punk, or Roman.
Um, Other than Braun, and Braun doesn't need Heyman. There's no one who is at a level that they should be being put with Heyman right now at this time. There's no one who is at that level right now.
Or Obafemi. If they bring him up and Oba has his new
Yes, yeah,
council.
yeah, 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 yeah. If Oba comes up, sure, but I don't necessarily think that Oba may even need Heyman. The beauty of Heyman is that um, you put guys with Heyman when they're established as main eventers, but they don't know how to main event yet. And so right now, like the reason making Cesaro a Heyman guy didn't work was it wasn't natural. Cesaro wasn't in the main event slot yet. He wasn't ready to be there. So if you when you put Heyman with somebody, you're telling the crowd that this guy's certified. He's certified now. And if you're not there yet, the crowd's not going to buy it. It has to happen organically. It has to happen organically. Heyman with Brock was organic. Heyman with Big Show was organic. Heyman with Punk was organic because they were, the ECW connection. The Heyman with Roman. We needed to get over that. We needed to get over. Well, Heyman's relationship with the family, but also too, you needed to establish that this was a very different. This is a very different Roman Reigns than what you had seen, and we hadn't seen Brock in a long time. So the you had to get the new Roman character over was a good way to do it. You used Paul Heyman, and Roman still did the majority of his talking. Heyman just came in to drive the point home. There's no one on the undercard of the roster who is even remotely in a place where they should be putting them with Paul Heyman. The maybe if you were gonna do like a new Dangerous Alliance or whatever, fine. There's a couple guys you could throw in there, but in terms of having having Paul be their advocate, there's no one who's even remotely ready for that, and you can't cheapen Paul to shortcut someone through because you'll be exposed and it's not going to work. It's just not going to work.
Well, gotta talk about the bad stuff. Well, you've been very nice and polite. I could tell. There's like, I want to rage. I want to rage. So this is where we're gonna rage about first. They are back. It's
Yeah,
we
right.
if we sometimes if we say absence makes the heart grow fonder. No, there wasn't any absence. We were like, please go away. But the Young Bucks are back. They screw Swerve. They say they did it for Hangman, but they also did it for the Death Riders. They're now saying, hey, we and the Death Riders might be in cahoots. And I can already tell you're like, fuck, why couldn't you guys go away? Just go away, you two, forever. I don't care. Go to Timbuktu. Go to hell. I don't care. Just
Well,
the Young Bucks need to go the F away.
let's talk about this. Look at this crowd. So aside from the guy in the tie dye who many moons ago was a New Jersey indie wrestler, and he was about 100 pounds lighter, the there's really no one here who looks excited. Right, right. How long were the Young Bucks gone? 7 months? 6 months?
Yeah, about 6 months almost. Yeah.
I don't see anybody here looking too excited. No one in that front row looks excited to see the Young Bucks. I think the guy in the orange shirt is telling you everything you need to know, and his middle finger is more annoyed versus being outraged that they're about to attack Swerve. Right? The Young Bucks have go home heat, go away heat. This is stupid. This whole thing is stupid.
Kevin, they got to be back in it. They might have got to be back now. Now we're talking about possibly Young Bucks versus Swerve and Hangman together. I mean, I can tell you're like, oh my God, Tony, please just say no. God damn it. Find your nuts. Have sex with the woman. Have a beer. Just say no. And we're getting this.
Well,
For a guy who secretly wants AEW to succeed, I could tell this is now like pain. Like in your soul pain. Like, how dare you keep letting the Bucks back in?
listen, this is what Tony wants, right? This is what Tony wants. This is what Tony wants. It has been almost 6 years. We still haven't learned the lessons. We haven't done anything to appeal to the mainstream. Their hardcore foundational base is shrinking. I'm very excited to see what the NBA finals bring us, so that we can see what the new low is now, what the new standard low is now. The the listen, the Young Bucks came back, and what happened? The Young Bucks had the lowest rated segment of the night, like they always do. It's just, hey, I don't, first of all, I don't really understand what is the point of this, right? The Young Bucks were terrified of the Death Riders and ran out of the building after their failed attempt at taking over the company, right? Because that's how it all started. We dropped Tony on his little pencil neck, and they were here to take over AEW. Well, all of a sudden, Moxley shows up with the Neo Moxleys, and now they're going to take over AEW. And then the Young Bucks ran away because their plan to take over AEW was ruined, and now they're turning on Swerve for some reason. Here's the only positive I can dig up, that I thought they did it well. The execution was a little off, but I thought they did it well. Was we saw this a lot towards the end of the Vince era. You'd have two guys who've been feuding for like 6, 7, 8 months, and then you turn on Raw, and now all of a sudden they're in a tag team, and you're like, well, why would that happen? I will give Tony this. Um, Although I don't understand why they needed all that security for Page, because at no point in time did they establish that he wasn't supposed to be in the building. The When Page walks up to Swerve and they have the conversation, at the very least, they planted the seeds for Paige and Swerve to come to some kind of an understanding. They don't like each other, but they have an understanding, and to put Paige in a place where he would be willing to team with Swerve because Swerve has acknowledged that because he's been a POS since he got there, he was getting all the things that he deserved, right? So at least they set up the potential to have Swerve and Page team up. The now I would tell you, do I think that's the most exciting thing you can do? Probably not. But in terms of whatever the hell it is that Tony's trying to do, it makes sense, and it's nice that someone went the extra mile to at least have enough forward thinking to try to tell a story. AEW has been trying to tell stories. They just don't know how to tell stories, so they don't tell them well. The this oh, again, why would the Young Bucks help Moxley? Right? The why would they attack Swerve? The I also don't I also go, yes, if you're gonna put the title on Swerve, this was not the pay-per-view to do it. So although they handled it well, or sorry, although they handled it wrong, they made the right decision by not putting that belt on Swerve, right? I think the rumor and innuendo is that he's holding out for Darby, which I think waiting for the frail lesbian to come back and win the title is not going to give you anything that vaguely resembles momentum. I think that the pillar days are long done. You don't half of the pillars aren't on TV anymore. The you know three of the four haven't been on TV in over a year, so it's kind of time to move on from the pillar thing and replace them because of this current iteration. Swerve is your main guy. He just is. So if you're gonna build the brand, you kind of need to figure out how to build it around Swerve. But because anything else is just a waste of time. Anything else is just a waste of time.
Well, I'm glad we ended that because this is the feud that Swerve had afterwards, where
Yes,
he calls out F Booker T. Hey, by the way, Kevin, Swerve represents black people. Swerve represent is
I know.
about black empowerment. Swerve is not a sellout.
Yeah,
You
Swerve.
should, and Kevin, if you don't like Swerve, I heard from his people, you're not black.
I know. Swerve is the king of all blacks when it's convenient.
I'm very upset with you right now, Kevin, because you dropped F bombs the last time you went on Swerve. I'm like, God damn it, this is what we want to show.
Well,
And now you're like mellow, like, all right, I'm no longer upset. I'm just disappointed you Swerve. Like, you're the kid who ate poop, and now I can deal with you.
well,
That's how
yeah, yeah.
I look at you now. Look at it. Like, I wanted fire. Now you're like, oh God.
Well,
You're an idiot.
I'll get there. I'll get there. Right. So, listen, like I talked about it on Toonie Talk. Um,
It was glorious.
the reality of it is that up until really up until Vince smashed the doors open, or up until Vince smashed the doors open, and made it so that black performers could go out there and perform. Um, being a black wrestler was not easy. And I kind of laugh, like if you were a black talent, unless you are already coming as a celebrity, you were not gonna get you weren't gonna get certain things, right? And how can I'll narrow this down, right? Um, all the guys who were allegedly the biggest racists were the guys who gave black talent their biggest due, right? Ernie Ladd was a booker. It was Bill Watts who made Ernie Ladd Booker, who put the WCW title on Ron Simmons. When we got towards the tail end of the Nitro era, Russo, the show was driven by black talent. He elevated the cat into a main event player. He transformed Ice Train into Mi Smooth and let him shine. He was the one who put the belt on Booker T and transformed Booker T into a super main eventer. The did a lot with Stevie Ray. Did a lot with Stevie Ray. The but outside of those anomalies, black talent really didn't get too much. And what's insane is you would think someplace as progressive as the Northeast, it would be better. But we're talking up into the late 2000s, most Northeast promoters and some of them who are names. I won't say who, but especially in Connecticut and Massachusetts, they didn't want anything to do with a black champion because black champions didn't draw. And if you couldn't dance, if you didn't want to make yourself into a pimp and wear the big fur coats and the stupid fucking hats, you weren't gonna get shit done. The hell, I know of instances where people actually legit turned around and dropped N bombs on people. And if it wasn't for certain people, some of whom had to actually sacrifice their career to right some wrongs and teach people that that shit wasn't gonna fly, it may not have changed. Booker T is a guy who ate a lot of shit, ate a lot of shit, but knocked down every door. And if it wasn't for Booker T, there would be no Swerve. And the thing that pisses me off about Swerve is Swerve was what? Let's see, when was Swerve born? Swerve was born in 90. So anybody who wants to be honest about where we were in the 90s, culturally, racism was damn near as close to being a thing of the past as you could get. Right? By the time you hit the end of the 90s, so by the time Swerve was 10 in 2000, um, the, the United States was upset that Colin Powell, a black man, did not run for president as a Republican because that's the guy that everybody wanted. We were not talking about color. Between Uncle Phil, Heath Huxtable, Michael Jordan, Will Smith, Samuel L. Jackson, the shit. I'll even give Queen Latifah her due. There were more black faces. There were more black faces in entertainment being being role models and without all the shucking and jiving and bullshit. They just happen to be people who happen to be black. It was normal. The only place where you did not see it be normalized and where you did not see them being successful was oddly enough professional wrestling, which is usually ahead of the curve for whatever those reasons were, right? So the the when you hit the Bobby Lashley era, all right, you hit the Bobby Lashley era, and the door finally gets knocked down. The Lashley becomes champion. The Hurt Business is excelling. You're starting to see different things happening in NXT. So back to my point about what pissed me off about Swerve. When Shane Strickland makes it to the WWE, right? He goes straight to 205, which means you're touring with the main roster. You're touring with the main roster. But he was also doing what the shit was it called? Was it still main event then?
It was
So
Hit Row. It was him in the Hit
no, no,
Row
no,
with.
no. The other syndicated show that was on the network.
Oh, he did the
Um,
Lucha Underground.
no, no, no. I'm talking about for in WWE.
Oh,
It was
205 Live.
205, and they still had main event, right? So they're because he was doing 205 and he was doing some main event spots, and then he just started touring and doing the regular house show circuit with the main roster. So he was being positioned to be integrated into the main roster from the word go. From the word go. Pandemic hits, everything changes. They don't know what to do with him. They send him back to NXT. As soon as he hits NXT, they start formulating a massive new character reboot for him. They give him Hit Row. They turn him into a mega mogul, and the guy essentially it goes on to do banger after banger after banger, and is positioned mightily until they get called up. And then they get called up. What happens? Everyone in unison is going, "What happened? What happened to Hit Row? Why isn't Hit Row on TV? What's going on with Hit Row?" They do a couple bullshit segments. Everyone's like, "Well, that's all you can do. Hit Row. Why isn't Hit Row wrestled?" And then they get the boot for weird reasons. I don't, the you know, they didn't want to get jabbed, and they got released. What happened? Swerve immediately ran to AEW. Everybody else got brought back. Did Hunter try to figure out how long he was going to be trapped in AEW? 100%, because Hit Row does not really work without Swerve, and we saw that. The Swerve has not had an ounce of struggle. And I say this I say this with as much respect as due. Swerve is an army brat. He traveled the world, and he himself was a reservist. He was not in the hood. He was not in the shit like Booker T. So when he puts on the fur coats and he throws the chains and he throws the fucking grills on, it's all performative. It's all performative bullshit. It just really is. He's playing a role. I get it. You're into hip hop culture. You got some connects, in the industry, but that's not you. That's not you. You were scholastically gifted. You're athletically gifted. You came from a stable, structured environment. Driven by the presence of your father. The and you were in a regimented military environment. You were out here running game in the streets, getting in trouble, any of that other bullshit. Booker T, for better or for worse, is a real one real who made real bad decisions and could have been a victim and overcame. Booker has seen shit. Booker has done shit. Booker has eaten shit. Booker has paved the path to make your fucking life easier. And you're gonna go out here and disrespect this guy? Who I don't understand who the hell this dude thinks he is. Because he has wanted for nothing. He has been put in a position to succeed any place he's shown up at. Any place shown up at. Whereas what Booker gets to the WWE, and one of the first things you do with Booker T, it's the Thomas Jefferson sucker promo. Booker T's first WrestleMania match is based around a fucking Japanese shampoo commercial where in his promo he goes, "Yo, Japanese people, what's up with all your greasy hair?" Right? Like Booker T had to, Booker T for a less eloquent way to say it, had to fucking step and fetch for a minute to prove his worth and before before he was allowed to shine. Strickland did not have any of that. He did not have any of that. And if you're gonna sit down and talk shit about Booker T, bro, we need to be honest about what you're doing, because you're out here clowning yourself instead of being the actual you. Well, I get it. So you fucking watched the shit uh oh God, what was the name of the Terrence Howard movie where what that trick comes from? Oh, you
Oh,
watch Hustle and
Hustle
Flow.
and Flow,
Yeah,
yeah.
you watch Hustle and Flow, and decides you want to be a fucking rapper. I get it. Yay, good for you. Good for you. You're not really fooling anybody, dude. You're a soft ass. You're a soft ass. You're a soft ass trying to be hard, and no one really buys it. Which is why you're so fucking insecure. That when Booker T calls you out, he got played by that idiot Vlad, who anybody and their mother knows is a grifter. That guy thrives off of getting black performers to antagonize and attack each other. He like I said, he's Timu Rosenberg, right? Everybody wants to make fun of Rosenberg for being the for being for being the dumpy white guy in the hip hop station, with no real hip hop cred. But that's all. Vlad is that just 10 times worse, and Swerve's dumb mark ass fell for it. He fell for it. But you do honestly, when you go back and watch that interview and you're listening to Swerve talk, and I'm like, you should go like, I don't even really understand what the guy's whining about. It's all poor rich. It's all poor little rich guy. I didn't get the push I think I should have gotten problems. And it's like, well, get over it, bro. How many people should have been megastars in the WWE and were not for whatever the reason could have and should have been? If sometimes shit just does not work out. If you hadn't signed with AEW so fast, he would have been back in the WWE the second Vince stepped down, like the rest of Hit Row was. Like the rest of so like I don't understand why we're pretending that he's a victim. You see, the other thing that pissed me off about Swerve. Swerve would be the first person to go, "Oh, I don't represent all black people. This is what this is about." Blah 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 blah. But then the second something goes bad, or the second he needs to elevate his appearance, it's, well, this happened because I'm black and I'm the first black person to black, because black. So it's like, bro, it's like every other of these fucking soft ass blacktivists running around. You're peddling woke bullshit, and your blackness is determined by the level of convenience. So if I need to be a victim today, or if I need to claim a false victory and invent a historic moment, my blackness is above 3,000. The but if I'm catching some heat, I can turn my blackness to over 9,000. The it's and then if it's a regular day and I just, oh no, don't diminish my accomplishments. I accomplished my accomplishment because I'm me, and color has nothing to do with it. That's all I need it to have something to do with it. Booker has never done that. Booker has always been Booker. Booker has always been Booker. And the fact that they had a face-to-face conversation, and Booker called him out on some shit, and gave him the opportunity to talk, and he didn't take it like a bitch, and decided, instead of saying what he had to say to the man's face, you decided to be in a very safe environment, a couple of states away, around security, on the camera, to take a shot at the dude. It just tells me that you're bitch made. You are bitch made. Soft in the baby shit. You're mentally soft. You're emotionally soft. You have no grit. You're just fucking. You're a fake bum ass. You're a bitch. You're a proper bitch. The And this is why I have such a hard time talking about Swerve, because this is a guy who should have shined, who should have been a role model, who should have been a force for normalization, right? Like, because people like Swerve. Swerve has a lot of charisma. Swerve has a lot of athletic ability. Swerve, with the proper amount of grooming, is someone who should be a big fucking deal. But instead, he wants AEW, and now he's chosen to believe that he is a big deal because, let's be honest, he shines very bright down there because the lights are very dim down there. He's in the MJF character, MJF category. Big fish, tiny pond. That doesn't mean you're the man. It does not mean that you have done anything that Booker T has done. Booker T has thrived and excelled no matter what situation he was put in. Booker T's talent transcended his race. The I'm like, how many, how many of these Southern white kids, I'm talking about kids in West Virginia, were giant, huge Harlem fan marks. You know, you talking about hitting the Harlem Hangover and all that other shit. Booker T and Stevie Ray were so good that they transcended color. You just wanted them to win because they were so good, because they were so impactful. You cheered for Booker T because of how good he was. The It didn't matter that Booker T didn't sound like all the other champions. You wanted Booker T because it was because of Booker T's personality. That's what it's all about. That's what, to me, that's why the Hurt Business was so special for a lot of people, was the fact that, especially if you were a Northeast wrestler who had to swim through shit, and had to listen, listen, if you're a black dude who talked like me and carried himself like me, other than the fact that I just happened to be big, so I got to win, they didn't know what to do with black dudes like me, because I couldn't thug and bug and all that other bullshit, and I wasn't going to. I wasn't going to. There were times where I packed up and left. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And fuck this guy if he has a problem with it. I don't give a shit if you're a legend or not. The and it, and it was what it was. The Hurt Business got to shine because it was three men who were proficient at what they did. They dressed great. They kicked ass, and they were articulate and allowed to be articulate and allowed to be authentic. That's why everybody loved it. That's why everybody loved it. The And then here's Swerve, just doing the performative shit. Swerve does not walk around in fur coats. Swerve does not walk around in grills. He just doesn't. It's all a fucking glamour. It's all a glamour to steal fake credibility. And that's why when Booker T calls him out on his bullshit, he responds so negative because he's an insecure little boy. He's an insecure little boy playing a part instead of just being a man and being himself and telling a story that needs to be told. He just he ooh, I almost said a word I should have said.
No, I because I get because I've interviewed Booker T, wonderful guy,
Mhm.
but you can tell you when you talk to him, you understand like both parents are dead by the time he's 13. He's living with his 16-year-old sister, and this is in Houston. This isn't like in Greenwich, Connecticut. This
Yeah.
is Houston, which is not a nice place.
No.
Gets arrested for stealing food from Wendy's because, well, mostly he's pissed, but he's also hungry. Started off in Global Wrestling Federation. Oh, by the way, while he's doing that, he's a security guard in housing complexes in downtown Houston. Once again, not a nice place to
Nope.
go.
Nope.
Has to raise a single kid. He is given names like GI Bro, Kane and Cole,
Mhm.
Ebony Experience. They come to WCW and they are brought out in chains
Yep.
as part of
Right? Like your introduction to the world is that you're prisoners in chains,
by
right?
Colonel Ron Parker.
I
Yes.
was like, and as if it isn't bad if they're going to be coming out in chains, right? Someone has a brilliant idea to put the colonel with them. The fucking plantation owner comes out with two giant black dudes in chains. Like what? What? Like Colonel Parker is actually dressed like Don Johnson is dressed in Django.
And also, you can tell from talking to the wrestlers, he's not Haku or the Steiners, but he's a guy where it's like, okay, do not f with him. He
Mhm.
knows how to fight. He will beat your ass if you get a line. I give Booker T credit because you can tell that if it's a younger version of him, Swerve is basically picking teeth out of out the floor, and Booker's just going, "Oh, you're still here. Okay, we're going another round." So how much do you have to give Booker credit that he hasn't engaged this? And meanwhile, Swerve is basically acting out like a spoiled kid.
Well, this is a man versus an insecure boy, right? Booker said what he had to say. First of all, the criticism wasn't even anything that significant, right? Like Booker just made a really quick point. Booker made a really quick point, and he moved on. Swerve said what he said, then Booker addressed it. Then Booker went out of his way to be in the same place Swerve was, so they could talk about it and squash it. Because Booker understood the trap that was being set, right? Like the Swerve was too much of a mark to realize what Vlad did, and also too, yeah, sure, fine. The uh, the although you really shouldn't be beefing with anybody, there aren't enough there aren't enough there aren't enough elite level black athletes in wrestling to have them tearing each other down without it being problematic for a lot of people and drawing the wrong kind of attention. The So Booker is trying to squash it, put it away, and make sure that Swerve understands where he's coming from, slash give him advice that's gonna take him to the next level. Swerve is the one who chose to not listen, to feel a certain kind of way, and respond like a petulant child. And at the end of the day, if you sat through that fucking 6.5 hour load of shit show, and that terrible main event where everybody's sitting on their hands, because the good thing about Instagram is I don't have to. I may not know how to sail the high seas to see the match, but if I keep clicking long enough people have posted clips of the match that I can piece together what the hell is actually happening. And let me tell you, what I found very telling was they when they go outside, they do the table spot, and by the time they get back into the ring, not a person is making a sound. The silence was deafening. It was anti-pop territory. You would have thought it was so quiet. You would have thought there were 100 Garganos out there. The No one gave a fuck about that match. So that tells you the state of just how popular Swerve really is. It's that crowd was dead, deader than dead. So I have never watched a Booker T match, no matter how uncomfortable the match may have been, where the crowd was silent ever, ever. The Booker didn't have to beg for a pop. The so the Swerve, you get to the match, and then Swerve gets in the microphone and says "fuck Booker T." What was the only thing that it accomplished? The next 4 days after that, we weren't talking about Swerve. We were talking about Booker T. Swerve, the mentioning of Swerve has all been incidental, and it's been to talk about how much of a bitch he is because it was a bitch move. It was a bitch move. Booker's not there. The so you didn't the pay per view didn't get over. The company didn't get over. The champion didn't get over. The challenger didn't get over. The match didn't get over. But Booker T got over. Booker T got over to the point that when we got to NXT 2 nights later, what happened? The crowd starts chanting "fuck Swerve."
Did you leave that chance? Just tell me, did you leave that chance? Were you there going,
You know where I was on Tuesday.
hey,
My presence is accounted for. I was live on
hey,
camera.
you could have just like radio into people like Harry. When NXT goes on, this whole one to chant. You had your moles in there, like AEW mole. You have your NXT moles. Like, all right, we're gonna start this at 9:30. People get ready. Admit it. Tell us the truth, damn it.
So like that just like I'm sorry, man. If I'm a Swerve, I should have learned a really hard lesson this week. But the thing is, I don't think he learned it. I don't think he learned it because, frankly, he's just entirely too soft to get it.
Well, speaking of soft, this is not soft. So Hook competed against, well, I guess the Ops competed against the Death Riders. God, I hate these names. And unfortunately, Hook here has gotten a concussion, and he pukes in the middle of a ring. And what do they do? Do they stop it? No, they keep going here. Oh, Kevin, we need to kill this bitch. Just kill AEW. I know you keep saying, well, other wrestling companies won't ever get on TV. They're trending towards somebody's going to die.
No, that's it. The problem is someone's gonna fucking die. Listen, even if Hook doesn't have a concussion, although I find it hard to believe that he doesn't, he got hit so hard that he puked. Right, so that means at the very least, his wind's knocked out of him. His wind's knocked out of him, and his entire body has spasms to the point that he's probably exhausted and needs a minute to recover. Right. The so there's at the very least there is a high potential for concussion, which means that concussion protocol should have been activated immediately. They don't do that down there for some reason. I don't know if they don't have one in place. I know Chris Nowinski has been down there to talk to them. I know that the reaction that the AEW locker room gave him versus the TNA locker room being in fucking tears was very different, which tells you that one side listened and one locker room didn't. The one locker room takes things seriously, the other locker room doesn't. This is a gross failure on the part of everybody in that ring except for Hook because Hook is the victim. The referee should have seen this, should have stopped it. The job of the referees have some of the absolute hardest jobs in wrestling. Not only do the referees have to know what they're doing, they need to know which individual talent is doing. They need to know how the crowd is reacting. They need to be aware of the time. They need to adjust to your adjusting on the fly. They need to be able to adjust what they want in the gorilla position. They need to be hyper aware. They need to be omnipresent. I'll put it that way. The referees need to be omnipresent and hyper aware of everything and need to be able to act on an instant. The AEW refs are all criminally devoid of this skill set. 6 years in. For I don't know how you don't notice someone puking. The kid was laying down. Like the kid is very clearly fucked up for whatever reason. The Did you pick him up and you don't see the puke? Um, the referee should have been on top of that. At no point in time does this kid get asked if he's okay. What the fuck is that? Then you have a very seasoned veteran in there who has seen some shit and should also be comfortable enough in his skin that he is also hyper aware of everything that's going on, and should see and needs to be paying attention to what this relatively inexperienced person is going through, because you're the one who's controlling everything. It's not Hook. Hook isn't calling shit. Most Hook is getting, hey kid, what do you like to do? What are the three things you like to do? And then whatever his involvement is in the finish. Other than that, that's what he should just be doing. What the fuck he's told. The so he's puking, and you're gonna fucking grab him. You don't know if he does that. You don't know if he. You don't know if he. You don't know if he has a concussion. You don't know if he has a neck injury. You don't know if you don't know if he you don't know if he has any major injuries. The kid puked, so there's a number of reasons that can make you puke. Significant head trauma, significant body trauma, something that causes enough pain where your body immediately starts to evacuate whatever's in it. The like there's just lots of stuff going on that should give pause and make you say, "Hey, you okay? What's going on?" But no, these assholes are too concerned with getting their shit in, getting their dumb fucking spot that no one's gonna remember in, because we do spots like this 400 fucking times on this dog shit show. This is disgraceful. This fucking company is gonna kill someone live on TV and actually ruin it for everybody.
If you're Taz, at what point do you just go, look, Hook, we gotta get out of here. I don't care if Tony gets pissed. I don't want to see you get hurt. I mean, if I'm Taz, I'm thinking I gotta get this kid to WWE as soon as possible. Hell, send him a TNA. Somebody that's gonna not have him get hit with a steel chair in the friggin' head. I mean,
So,
as a father, you must be looking at this. Go, what the? I'm about to choke somebody out. I'm getting pissed now.
yeah, yeah, bro. I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine what Taz is going through. You watch your fucking kid get clobbered, then you see your kid throw up, and this Hook man, this kid was a fantastic athlete, fantastic athlete. Did not look like he was going to go into wrestling, but he chose to do it. The but at this point, I mean, I say it 1,000 times over. If you are a young person who goes to AEW, I'm if unless the money is so good you can't say no, going to AEW is career suicide for you. You're going to destroy your equity. You're not going to learn anything you need to learn. You're just wasting your time. You're wasting your youth. You're wasting your creative years. So the paycheck needs to be fucking enormous in order for you to want to take the risk, because you're going to leave, and if you are lucky enough to get to the WWE, you're essentially starting over again, and you may be 5, 10 years older than everybody else around you, and you're digging yourself out of a hole, but you're going to feel a certain kind of way because you were on a major TV show. You were in a major TV show. But guess what? You're on a major TV show that no one fucking watches. The I don't know, man. If I'm Taz, I mean, the only thing that sucks is like, well, so Taz wants to be where his son is, right? So I don't know how much time Hook has left in his contract. I have a feeling that Hook may have re-signed, stupidly. The or at the very least extended his current deal. Uh, so now you're kind of stuck because, like, well, because if you Taz, right, you want to get out. There's always room in NXT, but are they interested? Are they interested in him? I think Hook is a good-looking kid, who still has a lot of time to put more size on. And I think he's been doing that. I think the good thing is that now that he's with Joe, Hook has a pedigree which tells you that he is probably listening, right? And there's no better teacher than Joe. There's no better teacher than Taz. The So at least at the very least, he's at least insulated there, not like the other idiots. But your concern has to be, well, is he going to make it through, or is one of these idiots going to fuck him up, right? Because as wrestling, anything can happen. I mean, look at Richie Steamboat. Richie Steamboat was poised to be a major main eventer, and one freak accident later, he's retired off NXT, and no one even remembers that he was there. The so it's like, on top of just the inherent risk that comes with being a wrestler, sitting around watching these fucking reckless idiots do this reckless bullshit, and your kid isn't really in enough of a spot where he can go, nah, we're not doing that. That doesn't work for me, brother. And also he's still young enough that he's going to think he should be doing this dumb shit. It's it's got to be tough for Taz. It's got to be tough for Taz. You know, it sucks. Is like fine, maybe he can go, but is there room in the WWE for Taz? Right? Because Taz is gonna. I don't. I just Taz may want to be on commentary. I don't. There's no room for him right now. They have a very solid team. The so now you're kind of stuck. Well, so now what do we do? Now what do we do other than maybe hope you can get a Legends deal, and maybe you can do some shit with your kid. Do some shit with your kid if he makes it there. But I don't know, man. I'm sure the conversations about how we got to get the fuck out of here as soon as you can get out of here. In the meantime, you got to stay safe. And then Taz, what's Taz gonna jump up and beat shit to somebody? It doesn't do any good for him. It doesn't do any good for Hook. Um, and if you did, Tony's such a fucking twat that he's gonna punish the wrong person for the blow up. And again, there are medical protocols in place for a reason. You don't do chair shots to the head for a reason, and then you don't do chair shots the way they do those chair shots for a reason. I just got everybody remember the movie Gladiator, where the top of your head, right there in the middle, the hardest part of the human head. And you take the most punishment. That's why when you go back and you watch old ECW, especially especially Bubba and Devon chair shots, what's the first thing they do? They tuck their chin, they drive their head, they drive their chest up, their head down, so that Balls or New Jack or Dreamer, when they go to smash with the chair, they're smashing right in the middle. They're smashing the hardest part of the human skull. Not this shit. That kid looked like that looked like a fucking Three Stooges skit. He was Wile E. Coyote running into the stop sign and immediately got fucked up from it. I just and the match kept going. And at no point in time did anybody say, "Hey, are you okay?" And they had time. They had time. They had time to get checked on. The second that kid dropped like a sack of potatoes, people needed to be paying attention because they're selling, and then there's what happened.
Well, let's end on a positive note because I feel like you're like, okay, I'm ready to need like a couple edibles, some drinks. I'm ready to just kill somebody here. Also, let's go on a positive note here. Chris Bay. First off, congratulations to the Chris Bay night because that was AEW guys, WWE guys, TNA guys all coming together. TNA is now also doing on their big April 17th event. They will be having a Chris Bay Day where it's going to be you get to hang out with Chris Bay for select paid people. It will be you get to hang out before Unbreakable with Chris Bay, with the Hardys. You'll get signed 11 by 17s of TNA stars and Chris Bay himself. Um, this I like because, look, I get it. Wrestling is a business. This is a no friend's business. This is a business. But for a kid who, I hate using the word kid because he's 26 years old. But for a guy who had that one bad moment where it almost
Yeah,
ended not only just his career but his life.
yeah,
It's uplifting to see that like people will rally, people will put aside partisan politics, wrestling feuds, all these things, and go, you know what? Like when CM Punk is throwing shout outs, it's like, okay, look, this is a kid here. This is not, a TNA guy, an AEW guy. This is a guy who is one of the brethren. How
yeah.
much does that help you go? There is hope for people.
No, this was it was a terrible thing that happened, a terrible freak accident, and it reminds people, especially people who don't wrestle, it should remind people just how dangerous this is, right? The when you're training, um, trainers are the way they are because you're one tiny mistake away from ending someone's life or ending someone's way of life. I should say quality of life. The and you don't know how long you're going to be able to do this. You don't. No one knows how many holes they have on their bump card, right? Like you've got guys who can go do this shit for 50 years, and there are people who can only do it for three. You just don't know. You don't know when your dream is going to end. So when you have a freak accident like what happened to Bay, um, yes, the naysayers come out. Well, TNA has to do this, that, and the other thing. But the fact of the matter is, anything that requires a lengthy hospital stay and rehab, it does cost a lot of money. Insurance will only cover but so much. Workers' comp will only cover but so much. And this, and once you lose your livelihood, and you can't work, it's just a very different animal. On top of physical distress, now there's mental distress, and you don't know how long you're not going to be able to do it, and you don't know what you're going to do if you can't go back to it. So to see the boys rally, and at least and at least do the GoFundmes and raise the money, and raise the money. This was the right thing to do. And yes, I'm not one of these people who thinks that these old buzzards who put all their money up their nose should be out here with GoFundmes because these guys made all the money in the world and didn't save anything. And now they drank themselves into needing a new kidney, and they're going to tug on your heartstrings as a fan. This is a very different situation. This is a young man who had a freak accident, and the reality is Anthem is not that big of a company. They've done what they can for him, but there's only so much they can do. So this is an instance where where fans have the ability to kind of give back, to the thing that they love for someone who needs it. Um, so this is a good thing, man. I'm a I kind of laugh at, like I may turn out, I'll bitch about a lot of things, but first and foremost, I do firmly believe, I'm a big believer, in the, in the power of humanity. I think that people are inherently good. I just think that, some folks make bad decisions. The, but I think that when it comes down to it, 9.999 times out of 10, the vast majority of people will do the right things for the right reasons. And this is the right thing, man. A lot of positive energy, a lot of love has gone into these events. It's nice to see that it's working out. Everybody just continue to say your prayers, and if you have the ability to donate because every little bit counts. Every little bit counts. So, I think he has a family too, right? I don't. All right, does he have a kid I'm not sure, but either which way, this is a young man who's in a very tough situation. So, whatever support we can give, I really do firmly believe give it. Help help his peers celebrate his life, celebrate the sport, the thing that brings them all together, that unites us all, and just and celebrate the positivity that wrestling itself brings and can generate. This is this is a chance for folks who love to be in the IWC to do some good, and remind everybody why we tolerate a lot of the other bullshit, right? So just like it's just I hope there's a full recovery down the road. I hope I really genuinely hope that this young man has a very viable and vibrant life ahead of him. And right now it's just if you can, everybody do what you can do to just just to help a fellow human being, through a tough time.
I mean, it's uplifting because I mean, first it wasn't like he was doing one of these stupid spots like, oh, I'm going to jump off a table onto a steel chair, onto a ladder. All right, I'm going to dive 30 feet. Like it was, he's working with the Hardys, he's doing a flip, and it just
Yeah, Well, that's it. Again, that's why this is very dangerous. It's very dangerous. You never know what's going to happen. You never know how it can go wrong. And it's also one of the things where you can do everything right. And just because your body takes the pounding it takes, I don't, people understand when you, and I'm not, this isn't hyperbole. This is not hyperbole when I say this. Every time you take a bump inside of a wrestling ring, your body goes through the trauma that it would go through if you had a very minor car accident. So a minor car accident where you know sometimes even a little fender bender, if they hit you hard enough, maybe you get a little whiplash, maybe your back hurts because your muscles tensed up, and you got jostled. It is the equivalent of being in a minor car accident where your vehicle gets moved. And this the human body is such a resilient thing that it teaches itself how to absorb and handle the pain. But like I said earlier, you don't know how many times you're going to be able to do that. And again, what he did wasn't anything super crazy, but it just goes to tell you that anything can happen at any time. And so, the even if it's not your cup of tea, do take the time to appreciate what these guys do when they go and go deliver some high risk maneuvers. The Because it does require it requires a hell of amount of athleticism, and there is danger. There is an element of danger. Anytime someone touches that top rope, there's an element of danger. You never know if the rope's going to break. You never know if you're going to slip. You never know what's going to happen when you land. I mean, I think about all the random free things that we've seen over the years. Eddie Guerrero elbow breaking live on TV and totally derailing a storyline. Edge falling off the cage and breaking his fucking ankles. Like it just shit happens, man. Shit happens, and this is happening one of those things where shit happened, and it was really bad. So
Like it was a C6, C7 neck fusion, C6, T1 spinal cord fusion. I mean, they told him you have a 10 to 25% chance of ever walking again.
yeah,
They're telling, if this is a 27-year-old kid who it's like, and I get it now, but you all say, oh, there's too many GoFundMe pages. This is a GoFundMe. This is a GoFundMe. God
yeah,
damn, why can't you people pay your own way? Because we're all having,
yeah. This
but
is
is
this.
this isn't somebody who there's a pension for, there is the
Yep.
retirement fund. This is somebody who
Yeah.
life basically just really stabbed him in the gut. And I'll admit, it is heartwarming when you see these people
Hmm.
go, all right, screw this. We're gonna rally. We're gonna rally around the kid. This is one of our guys. We will take care of you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Like I said, this is like, I think there's a big difference between these old vets or these guys who were around who squandered their money, put it up their nose, put it down their throat, wasted it on whores or just bad business, and weren't smart enough to pay someone to manage their money. This is a kid who at 26, first of all, you're just breaking in. So this is a kid who got started and honestly had everything to lose. Had everything to lose just because he liked, just because he had a passion for a particular sport and didn't take and decided to go travel a different path. Um, GoFundMe was designed to help people in need. Um, the so he honestly, this is no different, and you don't make a lot of money in TNA. You just don't. You just don't. You know the you just don't. You're making you're making an average Joe blue collar salary. In a lot of regions of this country, right? I think most of them were making 50 or 60. I mean, some were even as low as 45, annually, and then others weren't paid by appearance. So, we got to be honest. That's not a lot. This isn't like, they're in the WWE, and it's six figures, sometimes seven. This is an average person going to work. This average person going to work and being told you can't work anymore. So but your life has to go on. You got to pay for your house. You got to pay for your kids. You got to pay for your car. You got to pay for your phone. And how do you do it? These are the folks who need help. Um, again, it's just different, man. It's just different. This isn't like, again, some old vet who was an asshole, and all of a sudden they got to go to the doctor's office because they chose to live a life of excess, and didn't have a plan for the future. This is someone who was who was on the road to starting to build towards their future, and and had to pull off right away. This is the person that you rally for. This is the person that you rally for. He is in no different a boat than the single mom who loses her condo because a fucking tornado came through and blew everything up. It's the same amount of empathy. It's the same amount of empathy. It's the same amount of passion. And again, it's humans have the ability to want to rally, but people have the desire to want to turn a tragedy into triumph. And it's nice to see that people have been responding. It's nice to see the wrestling community coming together. It's nice to see the boys supporting the boys. So again, I'm just hopeful that I'm hopeful that when he can work again, that a company finds something for him to do, and that you give this guy a job for life. Because he's not wrestling ever again. But it doesn't mean that he should be excluded from his passion. You know, so that's my only hope, is that that one of these companies does find something for him to do. Give him an on camera role, give him a backstage role, let him help out how he can, where he can, and let him live his dream, even if he has to live it a little differently. It's still time to it's just give him the ability to be there. I think at this point, I think it's the least. That's the least that we can do.
Once again, it's going to be April 17th at the Cox Pavilion, Las Vegas, Nevada. If people want to chime in, it's called the Chris Bay All Day Breakfast Q&A with the Hardys. That starts at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then during the big pay-per-view or the TNA special, Unbreakable, there'll be a new Chris Bay shirt worn by all TNA personnel on the stream. Event begins at 7 p.m. live on Pacific time on the TNA Plus app. All of the shirts will be auctioned off by TNA, who will donate the proceeds to Chris Bay. So we're gonna end on that note. That way, we're happy, we're good, we're fine. So before we do that, Kev, where can fans check you out at? Where is the All Coliseum big event? Where is the X, the Instagram? And
Sure,
by the
sure,
way,
sure.
congratulations to you, because Kevin Apollo is now doing business with Mike Santana, Nick Nemeth. I know you want to play coy, but
Nah, man.
he's moving on up to the east side, as they say.
Well, no, that's Coliseum Sports Attraction is the main company, and Outlaw Wrestling's been it's the baby of Bull James. My brother from another mother. He does phenomenal shows out there in Brooklyn and Long Island. He's built a tremendous brand for himself, and like I said, he knew, he helped Santana when they were first breaking in, or Santana Ortiz when they're first breaking in, before they got their big run in TNA. Um, so it's nice, and the relationship kind of was rebuffed when he wanted to come in for Homicide's last match, and it's nice to see that they're pressing forward. Um, and to see Nick Nemeth on there, which has been something that Bull has been working on for a really long time. It's nice to see that coming together. Check out Outlaw Wrestling on the Instagram, ACW Coliseum on Instagram. One of the big changes that we're doing is I can announce that if you are in the Northeast, I think it's July. What's that Saturday? I have it on my phone. July 12th. Saturday, July 12th, we'll be at the gallery at Crystal Run in Middletown, New York. For our annual show up there, and so that's one of some surprises that I'll be listing. So we'll have posters up there for that soon. I don't know if we're gonna bring in a name. I wanted to bring in Dreamer, but he's gonna be busy that weekend. So I'll we'll do something pretty cool though. Lots of fun stuff coming up.
Kevin Apollo, ladies and gentlemen, once again, always an honor, pleasure having you on the show. We come back, a lot more going on here, only on It's Last Call. Last Call of the Alcohol, only on the Last Call YouTube channel.